Good afternoon, and welcome to the Cyber Agony Uncles for Bonfire Night. It's the 5th of November. I'm Uncle Stephen.
I'm Uncle Rich. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you all. Rich, you're a little bit out of focus there. Is that me or is that you?
I think it's me. Not much I can do about it. I think it's a low level of autumn light we're getting into the room.
Oh well, never mind. So, Rich, what have we got for us today in the way of a question?
Oh, we've got a doozy of a question. I'm going to read it out word for word. So,
Well,
apologies.
including all the bits all of it.
Yeah, all of it. So, I like to think that although we're not adult content here, we are certainly aiming at adults in the cybersecurity community. So I think they can handle the language that they're about to hear.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, then the question is as follows: I'm head of security operations at a retailer. I'm absolutely shitting myself all the time. I don't have incontinence issues. I'm not literally crapping my pants, but basically, I can't take the stress. We're bombarded from all directions every day. I have no clue if our defenses work. I'm crossing my fingers every day. The soccer mediocre on a good day, mainly because we're a retailer, not GCHQ. I'm constantly being tasked with driving down costs to the point where we're understaffed and I'm losing sleep thinking, what the heck do I do if and when something happens? I can't sleep. I've aged 50 years in 5 years. I guess I'm not cut out for this job, but at the same time, I worked hard to get to this point, and my wife likes to spend money like you'd not believe. She'd probably leave me if I ditched my job or took a demotion. There isn't really a question here other than who can cope with this? Please don't tell me it's just me.
That's such a brilliant question.
I know. Massive thanks to whoever sent that in.
Yeah.
They are anonymous, so I don't actually know who you are, but
No, me neither.
My sympathies.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Where does one begin? I suppose somewhere to begin with this is that almost nobody in a senior position in cyber actually knows whether the money that they've invested in security actually works or not. So you're very far from being alone in that.
Yeah, it's very hard to say or to demonstrate facts and figures and metrics around it, other than to say, well, we've not been hacked yet, so we must be doing something right.
Absolutely. I mean, this is, it's how do you, it's kind of along the lines of how do you prove a negative?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think that's the best that I've seen in from the point of view of ROI in a lot of organisations. We've invested this money and we've not had any significant incidents. Therefore, the money has prevented the incidents, which is, I think that's one of those logical fallacies that a lot of people, well, they're just kind of stuck. I mean, there are things you can do, aren't there? But that's the position that a lot of people are in, and that does lead to this feeling from the business side of the business that there must be money to be saved in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, too often cybersecurity and IT, in fact, are both seen as cost centers rather than actually bringing value and potentially saving money for a business or saving the business in the event of an incident. And so that's something that cybersecurity and IT have both struggled with for a very, very long time. And I think if you're the sort of person that's not going to be worried about your cyber defenses or the efficacy of your processes, your people, and your technology, then either you are supremely confident and have battle tested everything to the nth degree, or you're potentially not doing your job right.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. We all, one way or another, we're all sitting here paranoid that something is just about to go wrong, despite all the stuff that we do in order to try and prevent it. And the truth of the matter is that there are no guarantees. There isn't a magic formula, and if you follow the magic formula and read out the right runes or whatever it might be, that all of a sudden everything will be fine. So there is always that risk. I mean, a couple of things did strike me when I was reading this. One of them is that there are, in fact, things that you can do that demonstrate where your defensive gaps really are, if there are any, or looking at it the other way around, actually demonstrate that the investment has provided a level of defence that is adequate for your business. Now, what I'm thinking about here is it goes beyond things like penetration testing, which is very much sort of point in time and testing technology, and it's sort of along the lines of red teaming or purple teaming kind of events. And I think we need to, as an industry, we need to come up with a better way to describe this stuff. But what I'm really thinking about is more sort of adversary emulation testing. So it goes beyond just if I throw a load of things at this environment, what sticks, and more along the lines of putting some effort into understanding who is trying to compromise my organisation, understand what they're trying to do, what their objectives might be, and then running kind of war game activities that are based around the research of the TTPs of organisations, criminal groups, nation states, whatever it may be, that are actually likely to be the people you're going to come up against. And then measuring to see, first of all, did you detect it? And if you can detect it, could you do anything about it? So you follow through your incident response life cycle, detect, contain, eradicate, recover, and actually see, have I put in place all the right things? Does my visibility, is my SOC in getting the visibility that they need in order to start the whole process, which is often where these things fall down in my experience, that a lot of effort's put into a whole load of contain, eradicate kind of stuff. But if you've not seen it, you don't know what you're containing and you don't know what you're eradicating. So, so this whole piece. Now, the thing about those sorts of exercises is they are not easy to do. They're not impossible to do on your own without outside help. But they take time to set up. You have to research the potential adversaries in your industry, and you need to understand why your organisation's head might be above the parapet, kind of thing. And it can take time, and it can require a different skill set to those that are often within an organisation. But there are organisations that you can use to work with you for those sorts of things. And ideally, at the end of that, what you'll come up with is a list of things along the lines of, yep, this all went very well. Our processes are very solid here. Our technical security controls work. And then some things undoubtedly where you look at it and go, well, okay, these are the areas that we need to focus on. And it can, if things are going really well, it helps to justify why the cost actually isn't really a cost so much as an insurance policy. And if things go badly, you can use that then to help build your strategy for what you should be investing in order to make sure that your business continues to be safe in what they're doing. What do you think about that, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely. And And if the budget isn't there to bring somebody on board who can do that threat profiling and threat analysis work for you, then obviously there's things like the MITRE ATT&CK framework,
Yeah.
and it's free and visible online. And you can do your own research. You can look into
Yeah.
attacks on businesses within your specific sectors and things like that, historically speaking, and you can get a feel for it yourself if needs be. Nobody says that this research has to be perfect, but what you're looking for is something that's going to point you in the right direction. If you're currently concerned that there's malicious actors out there who would be looking at your business, find those facts, demonstrate it, prove it.
Yeah.
And also, not only are you giving yourself something you defend against, you're also justifying your expenses and your budget.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot of that. And also, one of the points I wanted to pull out was around the so-called mediocre SOC. So I guess my first question about that would be, who are you measuring against?
Yeah, that was my thought.
How do you know it's a mediocre SOC?
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think that's a very interesting point. Again, this comes down to what metrics are you using to determine that they're mediocre? Well, unless they have actually been tested either in real life or in sort of war game scenarios, all you're left with is, do they appear to be spotting the right sort of stuff? Do they appear to be hitting metrics for, I don't know, updates of antivirus, those sorts of things, the very basic stuff. It's difficult to know whether that constitutes mediocre or not, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And, how well tuned is your scene? Do you have the right sort of logs and security events coming into it?
Yeah.
Do you have good detection rules in place? Are you helping your people, your SOC analysts, to do the best possible job they can, giving them the best quality visibility? Because it's no good treating a scene like a log aggregator, of course. If you just plow millions upon millions of events in there per day that aren't security related, unless you've got amazing detection rules, then your analysts won't be able to see the wood for the trees. So it might not be a mediocre SOC team. It might be a poor implementation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we've seen that quite a lot. I mean, I've worked in environments where that's what the SOC was expected to do. Just sit and look at an endless stream of events scrolling past them, and you're sort of expecting them to grab the one that matters. It's just, it's just not the right approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was mention in there about drive down costs, and actually, I would be inclined to double check: is the driver to cut down costs or to maximize value? It's an important distinction, really. If you feel your SOC team are mediocre, and there's a drive to cut down costs, and somebody says, well, what's the point of investing in the SIEM tooling or investing in training or whatever? Well, think about the value that they bring, because it costs. Yes, people have to be mindful of costs. Obviously, it's a tough economy to be working in. We know that. But equally, if you can justify the value, 9 times out of 10, you can dispel any arguments around cost reduction.
Absolutely. It's a business risk and risk and return analysis, isn't it? Which is often not done well, because you don't know whether the money you're investing actually is resulting in you being more secure or not. I mean, one of the things that can come out of these sort of wargame purple team activities is you can identify areas where you may potentially have overinvested. Oh, hello, Rich. You're looking better now.
Yeah, I couldn't stand looking at my flickering image anymore. I mean, it's bad enough to look at myself on my best day, but I thought I'd move into an area with more light. So hopefully both of our viewers would enjoy that.
Yeah, you can tell we do these things live. We're not sat in a studio somewhere.
No, absolutely. We like the spontaneity of it all.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, you can use these sort of war game purple team activities in both directions. You can look for areas of underinvestment because basically you weren't able to detect and defend against something, but you may look at it and say, well, actually, we've managed to detect and defend against all of this real world type attacks, and none of it needed any of this particular investment. So we've clearly overinvested in this particular area. Can we do something simpler or something cheaper in that particular part of the defensive landscape, whilst maintaining the stuff that actually did defend us? So an example of that I saw a few years ago. I probably mentioned it before, but was involved in an organisation that did some purple team exercises a few years back. They weren't successfully compromised, but the reason that they weren't successfully compromised was because it turned out that Windows Defender was running in the background on the servers that were in scope. Nobody had intended Windows Defender to be running. It wasn't, there was no strategy for it. There were no policies or processes around it. It was just there because it's Windows, therefore it runs, kind of thing. Defender did a superb job. The particular attacks were not detected by any of the visibility tooling in this organization. And their primary endpoint protection suite didn't spot or defend against it. Defender did, and nobody realised until somebody spotted that Defender had kind of kicked in. And so off the back of that, they looked at it and said, well, actually, we clearly don't need to be spending a lot of money on some very top tier tooling, actually. Because in the endpoint space, they did need. So they took the money that they were spending on that and reinvested it into better visibility. So sometimes you can find out that actually you're spending money on things and they just don't work. So either make them work or get rid of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've spoken about this at length in previous episodes of the Cybersecurity Agony Uncles, but also in I believe in some of our live events and webinars.
Yeah.
There is a tendency, and it's a huge tendency in the industry for IT managers, security managers, people like that, to go ahead and invest in the shiniest new tools.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't consider the overlap between these tools. And so you end up paying twice for the same bit of functionality effectively, or only making marginal gains against your security goals. So that's another thing to bear in mind. The effective deployment of your cybersecurity budget is actually just as important as the overall bottom line figure on that budget.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. I suppose there's one other aspect to this which sort of strikes me, and that's around how confident, or that I think there's a lack of confidence that this person's organisation would actually be able to cope if they were hit with a major incident. You get the impression from what's written here that the expectation would be it would all go to pot very quickly. So possibly something to consider in addition to testing the defences and building the strategy based around that. Something else possibly think about then would be to have a retainer with an organisation that will be able to step in and help if things really do kick off. Sort of DFIR stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the person that asked this question puts it in very clear terms about how stressed they are in their role. And nobody in the event of a cybersecurity incident is going to be at their best, even if they have the best incident response plans and business continuity plans and things like that to follow. They're going to operate at their best possible level in the event of a cyber incident. And that's the time when you need to be at your peak in terms of performance.
So actually, that leads on to another thought that something else you can do is test these processes, not the cyber defense processes, but the entire incident response process. Tabletop exercises are a good way to go with that. And again, you can get organisations that can assist with doing that and running it for you, but you can quite easily do quite easily do these things yourself if you want to. And the concept is just to make sure that everybody who needs to be involved in an incident is involved in the tabletop exercise, and that sort of includes corporate comms, HR, legal, finance, definitely, all the different bits of tech and cyber and so on and so forth, and just think through. So if this did hit us, do we actually understand who is supposed to do what when? Who's making decisions? You know, the one which kind of gels people's minds is who decides if there's a ransomware attack? Who decides whether we pay or not, and who can authorize the payment?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this feeling, well, ransomware, it's all, that's all cyber and IT. We'll just get, we'll get the technology and cyber people to deal with all of that. Well, that's all right. If you're sitting on £500,000 demand for payment, I think that the CEO is going to be involved in that, and the CFO is going to be involved in that. And if they don't know that they're going to be involved in these things, that's going to come as a hell of a surprise. So there's lots of stuff that you can do that will help you to prepare. Because cyber defense is a lot of it is about thinking about what are the scenarios we might find ourselves in, and having a plan which will get you at least some of the way through that scenario. Obviously, the best laid plan. What is it? Best laid plans don't survive first contact with the enemy, or somebody famous said that. I can't remember. I misquoted, I'm sure, but you know what I mean. It's like things do go. You do need to have that flexibility, but if you've got the plan to begin with and everybody knows what their role is, then when you're adapting it, it doesn't feel like total chaos. It feels like you understand that you've got to this point in the plan, and instead of doing the next step, you've got to go and do something slightly different.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do we got? We've got 7 minutes left. I just wanted to touch on stress in the workplace.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Because this person clearly are almost at their wit's end. Now, I would suggest that most people in cybersecurity, certainly cybersecurity ops, are generally fairly stressed because it's a large weight on their shoulders. There's a lot of work to be done. Government white papers and things have recently shown the lack of maturity across the private businesses in terms of cybersecurity maturity. And so I get it. Jobs can be stressful. But if you're in charge of a cybersecurity incident response, and I did mention it earlier, you cannot be 90% stressed going into that with only 10% of headroom left.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, in senior roles in general, not just cyber related, but you're going to be challenged on a daily basis because it takes a huge amount of skill and experience and knowledge to get to that position in the first place. So you can expect to maybe be 75% stressed most of the time. It often goes with the territory that there aren't easy jobs at that level.
No,
that's just not a thing. You don't get to that level without having the skills, though. So bear that in mind. But you need that headroom. You need that extra space around you to be able to perform well in the event of an incident. And if that isn't where you're at currently, you need to take steps. Obviously, most companies have mental health support now these days. So take that up, absolutely. But look at your team, who you can delegate to, who you can upskill, what processes need to change, any additional headcount required. Look at all of that in order to make these things manageable, because you don't want to suddenly essentially have a mental breakdown when there is a cybersecurity incident, because it will hit you twice as hard. And that won't be a fun position to be in at all. Personally, for my money, I think I would be, if I was in your shoes, looking at outsourcing instant response to somebody that can cope with that kind of pressure. Certainly initially, until you get your own house in order on the BAU side.
Yeah. I think what people don't realise is that something like a DFIR retainer doesn't have to be expensive. You know, it's kind of different. If you actually have to invoke the retainer, then generally there are costs that are run up as part of the incident, but those costs are often offsettable against your cyber insurance anyway for the incident. But the retainer itself is very much an insurance policy and doesn't have to break the bank. But it does get you access to people that genuinely do know, are battle hardened at dealing with this stuff. They've done it many times before. You know, they know how to work their way through the technical side, but can also generally guide through all of the other bits and pieces, you know, the communications and so on, through an incident as well. So I think that may well be something that's worth considering for this particular person.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm going to break with the norm somewhat and talk about something we do at work.
Go on.
Because we've entered that sort of space in the conversation anyway. And we at that security company have just launched a new service, and it is digital forensics and incident response. Now,
this sounds like we've actually made this made this whole thing up in order to plug a service, which we genuinely haven't.
Genuinely haven't, but I think we should talk about it because it's only just gone live this week.
Yeah.
And if, like the person who wrote this question, you are struggling, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how you're going to perform in an incident, and you don't necessarily have those skills in house, you should reach out to Rosie Anderson or in fact Stephen or Eliza at the company. You know, we're any of us actually will be happy to talk to you about it. It's not a problem at all. And as Stephen said, it's a retained service, and if the worst should happen, you'll know that you'll have our support. And there's a blog on our website. There is tons of content all over the social stuff, so LinkedIn predominantly, but also Twitter. You'll find things on YouTube everywhere about this. And speak to us about it, and we'll tell you how we can help.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. You know, the advice that we're giving is we're not going into this game. In fact, we don't even run the business from the point of view of how can we sell more stuff. We run the business from the point of view of how can we help organisations, initially UK, but I mean, we were global these days. But you know, how can we help organisations to do business securely? Our success follows the success of our customers, which sounds like one of those awful things that people like COOs say, but the truth of the matter is that's how we've built the company, and we've done very well out of it. So the fact that when we're talking about potential solutions to things or stuff to consider, if you look at what we do, we probably are doing it. We're a very broad spectrum cyber defense organization, and we've got many years of experience. Certainly in the senior leadership team has got an enormous amount of experience and have seen many things. So consequently, it's very likely that if we're looking at these scenarios, we've already thought about this internally and thought of a way in which that can be. We might be able to assist with that sort of stuff, but equally, don't just use us, or don't feel like we're saying you must use us. Go test the market. We might not be the right people for you. We're anarchic. We run at 100 miles an hour. We may not be the people that you would feel most comfortable with. If you feel more comfortable with, one of the big four services, and you've got budgets that will cover it, hey, great, absolutely. We see that as a win, because any organisation which is more secure in the UK is helping the UK, globally, but you know what I mean. It's like helping the economy, helping just make the world a better place to be doing business. So we'd love it if you talk to us. If you don't want to talk to us, go talk to somebody else about it. These are just good concepts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eliza's going to shoot me, isn't she?
No, it's true. We want people to do better security wise. For informal chats, you can reach out to any of us on the socials. For commercial chats, then absolutely have a look at our website, see what we do, and fire us off a contact form or email or something. Ah, terrible.
You froze again.
Well, I was trying to justify why I wanted to talk about the service in an otherwise agnostic podcast, but I think it was worth it. Okay, that'll do me. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, look, thank you all for listening. I hope that the person who sent in this question or this this plea for help, I think, has got something useful out of it, and hopefully doesn't feel quite so bad. We did manage to avoid saying that the solution to most of these problems would be to get a different wife.
No comment.
Right. That's all from me.
And that's all from me.
Have a great